She wed his millions for greed, but his dark secrets shattered her soul beyond repair. Vancouver's skyline glitters. Mira's signing her life to a billionaire's fortune. But something's off. A contract seals their vows, yet shadows whisper secrets. Buckle up. This marriage is a mystery about to crack wide open. The scent of rich mahogany and polished leather hung heavy in the sleek Vancouver law office. A single glass table gleamed under dim light. Two figures perched across from each other, their fates teetering on ink and paper. Mira Elisa Varon tapped her manicured nails on the surface, eyes flicking over the thick marriage contract. A golden ticket to tie her to Julian Rex Carver, the billionaire whose name buzzed in boardrooms, but whose life stayed locked tight. She glanced up, meeting his stormy, gray stare, calm, unreadable, like a storm waiting to break. "No conditions?" she asked, arching a brow. "No prenup? No rules on your millions?" Julian leaned back, a faint smirk tugging his lips, his presence filling the room like quiet thunder. "Just one," he said, voice smooth as velvet, sharp as steel. "Stay married to me for a year. After that, walk away if you want. I won't stop you." Mira's eyes narrowed. Too simple, too good. No demands and no chains on her, spending, no leash on her life. She'd braced for a cage, not a blank check. 1 year for a lifetime of cash, she chuckled, crossing her arms. "Sounds like a steal." Julian nodded, sliding the contract her way, his gaze steady, piercing. Mira grabbed the pen, hesitating a heartbeat. Secrets didn't matter, not with his wealth on the line. Then signed with a bold sweep. She was his wife now, deal done. The wedding screamed billionaire dreams, an exclusive Vancouver rooftop. Skyline, sprawling below, grand chandeliers casting gold over whispering elites. Mira glowed in a white gown, diamonds dripping from her neck. Julian stood beside her, sharp in a tailored suit, but distant as a stranger. Vows swapped, signatures scratched, no I love yous, no soft looks. Just a transaction in fancy wrapping. That night, Mira stepped into the Carver estate, a mansion of marble floors, endless halls, and a grand piano gathering dust. Luxury hit her like a wave, but it felt hollow, cold. She'd married a fortune, but Julian wasn't the flashy king she'd pictured. He shunned the spotlight, dodged the high society whirl she'd craved. Something was wrong. Too private, too quiet. Weeks slipped by in the estate, and Mira's unease grew. One night, after a late solo outing, she spotted it. A locked door down a shadowed hall Julian never touched. Curiosity tugged. She hid in the dark, watching him slip inside. Before it clicked shut, she glimpsed it. Not riches, not files, but screens flickering with surveillance, weapons stacked neat, folders stamped classified in red. Her pulse raced. What was he hiding? Julian stepped out, catching her there, his face a mask, posture cool. "You shouldn't poke around," he said, smooth but firm, a warning wrapped in silk. Mira lifted her chin, defiant. "What's behind that door?" A cryptic smile curled his lips. "Some things aren't yours to find, Mira." He walked off, leaving her heart hammering, certainty sinking in. She'd married a stranger with shadows. Mira had it all. Designer dresses stuffed her closet. Jewels worth cities sparkled in drawers. Chefs plated gourmet dreams. But wealth couldn't fill the emptiness. She felt trapped, not by bars, but by Julian's distance. He never controlled her, never barked orders, yet his polite reserve built walls she couldn't climb. She'd banked on marriage softening him, cracking that cool shell, but he grew more distant, a puzzle she couldn't solve. At dinner she tried, chatting over steak and wine, but he stuck to small talk, dodging depth. She dragged him to galas he declined, holed up in his office with the work he wouldn't name. It drove her nuts. One night, frustration boiled over. She slammed her fork down, voice sharp. "We're married, Julian, but I don't even know you." He sipped his wine, calm as ever, gray eyes steady. "You knew this was a deal when you signed. Cash for a ring, nothing more." His tone wasn't harsh, just flat, empty. Mira's jaw clenched, heat rising. "I married you for the money, sure, but this, living with a ghost? I didn't sign up for that." He set his glass down, gaze flicking to her, brief, unguarded, then gone. "You got what you wanted," he said, soft but final. "Don't ask for what I can't give." She stared, anger mixing with a pang she couldn't name. Hurt, maybe. This wasn't just a marriage of convenience anymore. It was a riddle, and she was stuck inside it. Vancouver's Lux hides a chill. Mira's got the cash, but Julian's a locked vault. That secret door's cracking open. Will she find love or danger? Part 2 drops tomorrow. Hit subscribe. Don't miss the twist that'll flip her world. Vancouver's storm brews. Mira's digging past Julian's walls, but secrets bite back. A locked door swings open. What's he hiding, and why's he so close now? This mystery's unraveling fast. Don't blink. It's about to get wild. "I married you for the money, sure," Mira Elise Veron admitted, leaning forward over the dinner table, her voice sharp with frustration. "But not to be a shadow in your life." Julian Rex Carver's gray eyes flickered. Something unreadable danced there, a crack in his steel wall. But just as quick, he shut it down. A faint smile curved his lips, cool and distant. "Good night, Mira," he said, smooth as ever, and walked off, leaving her steaming, fists clenched. The gap between them widened daily, a chasm she couldn't bridge. Mira wasn't one to sit in the dark. She'd married a riddle, and she'd solve it. She wasn't naive. Julian's wealth, his power, his silence screamed secrets. So she started digging. Subtle at first. Casual chats with the staff, but they were loyal as stone, lips sealed tight. She scoured public records on his deals. Nothing but dead ends, a polished facade hiding the real man. It fueled her fire. Then one night she saw it again. That locked door down the shadowed hall, taunting her like a dare. While Julian was out at a late meeting, she made her move. Earlier, she'd swiped a key from his desk drawer, unsure if it had even fit. Her hands shook as she slid it into the lock. It clicked. Heart pounding, she pushed the door open and froze. Surveillance screens glowed, tracking places she didn't recognize. Files stamped classified stacked high, names bold and unfamiliar. Weapons gleamed behind glass sleeks, deadly. This wasn't an office. It was a lair. Before she could step closer, a deep voice sliced the silence. "I warned you, Mira." Her breath snagged. She spun to find Julian in the doorway, his calm mask gone. No anger, no shouts. Just a cold, lethal edge in his stare that chilled her bones. She straightened, chin up, refusing to flinch. "What is this, Julian?" He stepped in, shutting the door with a soft click, his voice eerily steady. "You tell me. What were you chasing?" "The truth," she fired back, arms crossed tight. "Since my husband's a locked box." A dark, humorless chuckle slipped from him. "You don't trust me? Not even a bit, do you?" Her jaw clenched. "How can I? You're drowning in secrets." His gaze darkened, stepping closer. His words a low sting. "You married me for cash, Mira, not my soul." It hurt, sharp and raw, but before she could snap back, his voice dropped, almost a whisper. "There's stuff in my world. Dangerous stuff. I shield you from every day." Her heart skipped. What did that mean? She hated his riddles, the way he dangled hints and yanked them back. "I don't need shielding," she said, firm and fierce. Julian tilted his head, studying her, his eyes intense, unyielding. "Maybe not," he murmured. "But hear this. Some doors stay locked for a reason. He turned, leaving her alone with the humming screens and her racing pulse. For the first time, doubt crept in. Was she brave or foolish to push him? That night, a storm raged outside Wine, howling against the Carver estate's glass walls. Mira lay curled in bed, blankets piled high, her body burning with fever. It had crept up all day. Dizziness, exhaustion. But she'd brushed it off. She didn't do weak. Now, shivering and miserable, she barely heard the door creak, steady footsteps cutting through the dim room. A warm hand pressed her forehead. She stirred, eyes fluttering open. Julian knelt beside her, brows knit with something new, worry. "You're on fire," he said, voice softer than she'd ever heard, a crack in his armor. Mira blinked. Delirium, maybe, but his gray eyes held real warmth. "I'm fine," she croaked, pushing up, weak, stubborn. He didn't argue, just eased her back with a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Stay put," he said, low and sure, a flicker of care she couldn't unsee. She sank back, heart thumping, not just from the fever. Vancouver's lights dazzle. Mira's fever fades, but Julian's walls tremble. A gala spins jealousy into sparks. Has she misjudged him? Or is love a bigger secret than his locked room? This storm's shifting. Hold tight. It's a heart-pounding twist. "You're not fine," Julian Rex Carver said, his voice firm as he reached for a bowl of cool water by Mira Elise Varen's bedside. "So quit acting tough." She opened her mouth to argue, but the words died when a damp cloth pressed against her fevered forehead. She froze. Julian, the cold billionaire who barely blinked at her, was here tending her. Not a maid, not a doctor, him. His hands moved gentle, but sure, adjusting her pillows, brushing stray curls from her face. He sat close, silent, steady, a rock in her shaky haze. Mira watched, stunned, as something shifted inside. Had she pegged him wrong all along? The gala was her dream come true. Vancouver's elite packed a glittering ballroom, chandeliers raining gold, cameras flashing. Mira should have been in her element, sipping champagne with the city's power players, but she felt off, restless. Julian had come along, a rare nod to her world, but he drifted, huddled in business chats, keeping her at arm's lengths. Fine, she told herself, swirling her wine. She didn't need his eyes on her, right? Then a smooth voice cut through. "You're a vision tonight." She turned, smirking at Lucas Pierce, investor, charmer, a shark with a velvet grin. "Always am," she shot back. He leaned in, voice low. "Does your husband know he's hit the jackpot?" Mira rolled her eyes, a laugh slipping out, but before she could toss another quip, a firm hand gripped her wrist. She gasped as Julian yanked her away, pulling her through the crowd to a quiet balcony. His hold wasn't harsh, but his frame buzzed with tension, gray eyes blazing. "Are you kidding me?" she snapped, wrenching free. "What was that?" His jaw tightened, voice dangerously calm. "Flirting with him, think that's smart?" Mira stared. Then a slow, wicked grin spread. "Oh my God, you're jealous." Julian didn't blink, but his silence roared. She'd struck gold. She stepped closer, teasing. "Gonna pretend you don't care now?" He exhaled slow, a muscle ticking in his cheek. "I don't like seeing guys treat you like a prize to snag," he admitted, low and raw, his guard slipping. Her smirk faltered. His words hit deeper than she'd expected, stirring her pulse. She searched his face, restraint warring with fire, emotions he fought to bury, and her own heart wobbled. This wasn't just a game anymore, this push-pull dance they'd played. Had she lost already? The ride home was quiet, not stiff, not strained, just heavy. Mira stole glances at Julian, composed as ever, but she knew better now. Those clenched fists at the gala, that rough edge in his voice. It was real, and her chest ached because of it. This wasn't about money anymore, and not just a cold contract. Julian frustrated her, baffled her, but he'd crept under her skin, into her heart, and that scared her spitless. His secret still loomed, a locked door she couldn't crack. If she let herself love him, what happened when the truth spilled out? Julian, meanwhile, wrestled his own war. He'd built an empire, wealth, power, control, but Mira? She was wildfire he couldn't tame. He'd signed up for a clean deal, 1 year, no strings, no feelings. Now he was drowning in her. Love he hadn't planned, couldn't afford. Because she didn't know, his fortune wasn't just boardroom wins. It was shadows, deals too dark to name. If she learned it, she'd bolt. He was sure of it. She'd married him for security, not a man with a past like his. So he buried it, kept her at bay, swearing he'd let her go when the year ended. A lie he clung to, telling himself it kept her safe. But that night at the gala, seeing Lucas circle her cracked his resolve. He couldn't hide it anymore, not from himself. He loved her, and it was a disaster waiting to blow. Mira felt it too, weeks of this pull, this ache, building to something she couldn't ignore. Vancouver's night hums, Mira's caught in Julian's storm, jealousy flaring bright, love sneaking in, but his secrets loom. Will it save them or shatter her? Part 4 is coming tomorrow. Drop fireworks if you're all in for the crash. Vancouver's shadows deepen. Mira's ready to bolt. But Julian's secrets pull her back. A room of lies, a fight for trust. Will she run or face the man she's falling for? This clash is electric. Don't miss the spark that could burn it all down. Julian Rex Carver was pulling away. 1 minute jealous and raw, the next a cold wall. And Mira Elise Varen hated how it stung. This wasn't supposed to hurt. It was a deal, not love. So why did her chest ache like she'd broken the rules? That night she marched to his study, craving answers, but froze outside. Voices leaked through the door. Julian's cut sharp. Mira's not part of this. She was never meant to matter. Her heart stopped. Another man replied, cool and clipped. When the year's up, what then? Silence, then Julian, flat. She'll take her cash and go. I'll move on. Mira felt gut-punched. A piece in his game, nothing more. It clicked. His distance, the locked doors, the glimpses of warmth she'd clung to, all fake. Swallowing a jagged lump, she slipped away. By morning, she decided, she wouldn't wait for his goodbye. She'd leave first, shield her heart before he shattered it more. Bags packed. Car called. She was done. But fate laughed. Crossing the estate, she spotted it, that locked door, ajar like a taunt. She should have kept walking. Anger screamed run, but heartbreak and curiosity yanked her back. She pushed it open and froze. Dim light spilled over surveillance screens, classified files, weapons gleaming behind glass. Not an office, a war room. Her pulse raced. On the desk, a name jumped out. A vanished figure from old headlines, tied to global scandals. Next to it, Julian's signature, bold and damning. Her hands shook as it hit. His wealth wasn't just business. It was something darker, bigger. Fear and clarity crashed over her. Who was he? She didn't run. Instead, she stormed to his office. Julian stood by the window, city lights painting his silhouette. He turned, unreadable, as she flung the file on his desk. "Tell me the truth," she demanded, voice slicing the air. "Who are you?" A thick silence stretched. He stared at the papers, then her. No dodge, no lie. "I wanted to tell you," he said, slow, heavy. "But I couldn't." She crossed her arm, fire blazing. "Couldn't? Or wouldn't?" His jaw tightened. "Both." Her heart thudded anger flared hotter. "So I've been blind this whole time, and you expect me to just nod and smile?" He stepped closer, voice dropping low. "I was protecting you." She let out a bitter laugh, sharp and raw. "From what? You?" He flinched. Just a flicker, but it cracked his mask. Suddenly she saw it, not just a tycoon, not just a shadow. He was scared. Scared of her walking out, scared of her seeing him bare. "Mira," he murmured, softer now. "I know I should have laid it all out, but I was terrified." He paused, then the words slipped free. "Terrified of losing you." Her breath snagged. He'd never shown this, never let the walls fall. Vulnerable, unguarded. Julian Rex Carver, afraid. Her resolve wobbled. She'd been so sure she'd bolt, end this farce. But now, it wasn't about cash or contracts anymore. It was him. The man who'd slipped past her defenses, who cared despite his lies. She swallowed hard, searching his gray eyes, steady, raw, pleading. "What if I stay?" she asked, voice trembling. He held her gaze, unwavering. "Then I'll prove every day you didn't waste your heart on me." A beat. Silence pulsed. Then slow and careful she stepped closer. No words, just a look, a spark catching fire. This wasn't over. It was shifting. Vancouver's skyline watches, mirrors caught between flight and fight. But Julian's bearing his soul. Secret spill, love teeters. Will she stay or shatter? Part 5 drops tomorrow. Drop fireworks if you're gripped for the finale. Vancouver's waves whisper. Mira's not running anymore. She's choosing Julian, secrets and all. A ring, a vow, a new dawn. Can love rewrite a contract's cold start? This finale's a heart-stealer. Brace yourself. It's unforgettable. Mira Elise Varon wasn't afraid. Not anymore. For the first time since this marriage began, she wasn't tethered by Julian Rex Carver's wealth. She was anchored by him. A year ago, she'd stood on Vancouver's edge, signing her life to a billionaire for cash. Now she waited on a secluded beach, the sky ablaze with gold and pink, the breeze soft against her skin. She wasn't that woman anymore, the one who'd calculated every move. She turned, spotting Julian striding toward her. White shirt open at the collar, sleeves rolled up, his gray eyes warm, alive. Not the icy stranger she'd wed, but the man she'd grown to love. He stopped close, hands in his pockets, a playful smirk tugging his lips. "Caught you staring." Mira crossed her arms, smirking back. "Just wondering how I fell for a guy I planned to ditch." His grin softened, eyes twinkling. "Beats me. I'm still figuring out how I got so lucky." Silence settled, not heavy, not strained, just right. Then, before she could toss another quip, Julian dropped to one knee. Her breath hitched. He flipped open a velvet box, revealing a diamond ring. Simple, stunning, timeless like him. "No contracts this time," he said, voice low and steady. "No deadlines, no deals. Just us." Her heart pounded, a lump rising fast. "Julian," he pressed on, gaze locked on hers. "Mira Elise Varon, will you marry me for real?" A year back, she'd have laughed. Love with him? Impossible. Now tears blurred her vision. She couldn't picture life without him. One slipped free, and she laughed, soft and shaky, sinking to her knees in the sand. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, joy spilling over. "Yes, Julian, 1,000,000 times yes." His face broke into a rare, breathtaking smile, pure, unguarded. He slid the ring on, pulling her into a kiss, deep, fierce, a seal on something new. The deal was dead. Love had won. Their second wedding wasn't the first sklits, no grand halls, no social sharks. Just that beach, waves crashing soft, a handful of real souls, friends, family. Cal Harrow grinning from the sidelines, simple vows, bare feet in sand, a promise rebuilt from scratch. After, they forged more than a marriage. They launched the Carver Fund, pouring their wealth into lifting struggling families, young dreamers, second chances Myra once craved. She'd married him for money, stayed for love. And now, side by side, They changed lives. Standing with him, watching hope bloom, she knew this was richer than any fortune. She'd found him. Mira once thought cash was her prize, love a fool's game. She'd wed Julian as a transaction, walls high, heart locked. But he'd slipped through, secrets and all tearing her plans apart. Money didn't bind them. Love did. It's not how love starts. It's how it shifts you, fights for you, makes you whole. The best stories spark where you'd never look. Vancouver's sunset glows. Mira and Julian trade cash for forever. A beach, a ring, a love reborn. Did this melt your heart? Drop fireworks if it hit deep. Share this magic. It's too sweet to hold back. Timeline Stories, fam. This one's a keeper, right? Mira and Julian's twist from deal to devotion. Did it warm your soul? Smash that like. Share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe. Hit the bell. Don't miss these heart tuggers. Where are you watching from? Spill below. Your vibes fuel us. What's next? More love, secrets, or dreams? You call it. Till then, chase what's real, and I'll see you soon.